Welcome. It's really nice to see all of you. I'm happy after 2 years, nearly 2 years, of video conferencing. It got really boring. Seeing people really in person and live, starting talking, laughing, crying, and it's really, I would say, a really good excuse to get out of the office. So I hope everybody feels the same as the I would say organizers of Risk also said there is beer, so I understand that there was beer or any alcoholic beverage as well. So this is also something that is missing. And today we'll talk about a little bit of technology. To introduce myself, my name is Bojan Radulović. I work for Cisco. So rather than the companies that you usually see at this here, we're a bit bigger. A bit wider. Why? There's a lot of stuff. The portfolio is really big. So from OT, from hardware, from LoRa to security, which is a really important pillar, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of products, a lot of software. Today we're going to talk about more software licenses. I like that. I work for Cisco. There's no lead times for software. So that's the good part, but everything else we'll discuss as well. The presentation talks about passwordless, so roadmap to passwordless, and the evolution of, I would say, MFA, how you see it today and how it's going to evolve in the future, and how it's going to be, or how we're going to possibly implement. My responsibilities in Slovenia specifically is working in pre-sales. And the technologies that I cover is various, but security is one of my focus points. So that's why my interest is also being here is quite large. Okay, first question before we move on. Does anybody know what kind of, I can say, holiday we observed on 5th of May? Oh, I heard something. Who said it? World Password Day. Perfect. I was assuming that nobody's gonna know it, but it was World Password Day. Interesting thing. So it was, I would say, first hinted on by Mark Burnett in his book that it would be really nice or really positive if we had once per year I would say, dedicated promotion of securing our identity. Yeah? So this is an event which kind of promotes best practices and would kind of focus you on working on your, I would say, digital identities and your passwords. And it's really, if you look at the recommendations, it's really more about the consumer, I would say, but it works very well for everybody else as well. Yeah? So what does it mean? Every first Thursday in May, so every year, we observe this kind of holiday. It's not public holiday, which would make it that it's time off. However, it has some good ideas that we should follow. And following, I'd say, turning on multi-factor authentication also for personal services would be a good idea. It would be really a good idea to change the passwords, not just rotate the last number, or change the last character. And so if anybody found himself in this statement, yeah, you're not alone. I also fall in this trap, but I have levels, which means I have levels of password security for my personal and my, I would say, professional life. What about the adoption of, let's say, multi-factor authentication? Multi-factor authentication is becoming, or is I would say, a must-have in the environment, any enterprise environment. However, feedback from the customers is kind of what you see over here. The feedback is it's more cumbersome, it's more work. Reality is customers really like, or users really like to save their passwords. They really like putting them into the browser history or browser password, let's say some shared portal, and using it that way. MFA together, like push notification, SMS, it's cumbersome. They say it's cumbersome, it's additional stress into their life, and they don't want to use it, or they don't like to use it. However, the system is like, this is the problem. Now, if I want anything that you remember from this presentation, is two things. First thing is, any MFA is better than no MFA. Remember that. Yeah? So whatever you hear about today, any MFA is better than no MFA. Second thing, what we will need is be vigilant. Yeah? So be vigilant with your passwords and implement it at your best of your knowledge. And all MFAs are not equal. We're going to look at different levels of MFAs, so you understand what I'm talking about, but not all MFAs are equal. So these are the two ideas that I want you to come back to. How about equality? So what I'm talking about regarding equality. So if you just look at this scale, I don't know if it's really readable from the distance, I'll read it out a little bit. First level, so the red one is shared passwords. It's a really bad. Top is passwordless. Yeah? In the middle, there are different levels. Yeah? And where I personally am located, somewhere is between, I would say, 3 and 7. Professionally, 8, but personally, until 7. Yeah? Why do I not use everywhere, every level? Because for some services, I use a very, very simple password, which are really not important to me. Secondly, I mostly, for financial services, emails and so on, I do turn on multi-factor authentication if it's possible, and if the service allows it, usually it does. And I try to put it as much as towards a codeless two-factor authentication, if it's possible. In reality, I usually go more in the code-based environment because that's what is available to me. Yeah? That's the idea. If you see on the right-hand side, but it's very, very difficult to see, these are the vulnerabilities of each level. Yeah? So each level has its own vulnerability. Yeah? And even the top level, the passwordless, has a vulnerability, but it does manage to, I would say, move along quite nicely, and it does increase your security in an organization to a higher level. This is how it works. Now, what's happening in this space? Yeah? So let's say we like MFA. So we are IT guys here. We should be all familiar with MFA, and we are aware of what the capabilities are. The reality of the current status in the last 2 years that I've seen in Slovenia is there have been, I would say, ransomware attacks. They've been really bad. And the reality is that if there was an MFA solution applied, it would either possibly stop or severely degrade the attack. Yeah, so it would be completely different story. Yeah? Unfortunately, if it's not implemented, it can cause quite a lot of problems. I'm sure a lot of you are working for partners, you've seen it with your customers, some of your customers you've seen it at home, vendors even more, and it becomes really bad. Now, even with MFA, some groups or some, I would say, hacker groups have started, I would say, hitting on those levels of MFA. What do they do? Yeah? Basically, what they do is just try to put themselves in between you and the original and the user. So the user and the original site put in the specific site to be redirected. Try to catch a specific two-factor authentication password. Try to enroll a new device to the, I would say, multi-factor authentication system and reuse it for that particular attack later on. It gets worse. They add a little bit of social engineering. So I would say the most, the attacks that are mostly known come from the group called Lapsus. it's not that these attacks do not exist in the last 2 years. They have different areas and scenarios. But lapsus has been known, this has been said that they attacked or tried to attack very big organizations, and they were the annoying users. So they were basically using prompt bombing. How does it look like? Basically, when they start bombing or prompting for MFA passwords, they do it at night to annoy the user. Yeah? And they do it often, regardless of how often it happens, and they try to annoy him so much that in the evening when he wakes up at 1 a.m. in the morning, he just clicks on accept and says, make it stop. And I don't want to listen to it. And they target really big organizations because somebody in the organization would somehow press yes. Yeah? And once they do press yes, the first task is to enroll another device for authentication and try to reuse it later on for different sorts of authentication services. So that's bad. Why is bad? Because we also see it at Cisco. Yeah, we see it that we are targeted. So we try to do our best. Our IT does our best. We have stringent scenarios. We have to abide by processes, and we cannot, I would say, apply or just accept different requests coming from nowhere that are not authenticated. We should actually also report them. Here comes kind of the solution. Yeah? So at least to this problem. The solution is, as I would say, a group of specifications called 502. 502 allows for the authentication to happen through different scenarios. So it allows both for passwordless and MFA or codeless authentication. And it, I would say, includes stuff like what you know, what we have, and additionally ties it down to the device. Tying down to the device makes it much more easy, I would say, much more easier. The backend system is complicated, more complicated to PKI as a system. However, it allows the user to use it more transparently. So with the use of the, I would say, biometrics, with the use of fingerprints, I would say face recognition, or different capabilities of the devices, sometimes with touch. Yeah? And it, I would say, works really well. It kind of requires that the user gets along with the new part of the technology. However, it does help, or it does allow the user to authenticate in a much safer way. I'll give you a scenario of how it looks to me, I would say, in my daily observation. So basically, using applications at work. So Cisco is familiar to eat your own dog food, which means we have to use our applications, or we use our application also in our IT environment, which means passwordless is also allowed for us. It's not mandatory, it's allowed, so we can choose by ourselves what we want to use for. And how does it look for me? If I want to access the application, depends on which type. For instance, Salesforce is something that we use daily. It's in the cloud, which means we authenticate, I try to authenticate my device as a certificate. We check for device health, so that's happening at the same time. And once I authenticate to get the request for a fingerprint, I also use the fingerprint on the MacBook, and I get allowed to the application. That's the idea. And this is also how it works. Additionally, the additional scenario that I also use is, if it's not passwordless, is use of push codes on the MFA. That idea is, for me, also fine. I'm an IT guy, I understand why I have to do it, but a lot of, I would say, a lot of employees that are, let's say, not in that part of the environment do not understand why it is. They find it pretty much annoying. If we talk about different steps on this authentication process, the device health is something that we can check with the client. Device health or device health application is basically the client that allows us to test different scenarios or different mechanisms on our client. So it allows or doesn't allow the user to connect before or actually get the authentication passing to the user. I haven't talked about the product. The product itself, or the solution itself, is called Duo. And Duo itself was an acquisition. So Duo itself, I would say, is a very friendly application, usually popular because of easy to use and easy to use enrollment for users, and also how they apply or authenticate by themselves. Various different scenarios of authentication, and also capabilities of SSO, so SSO application authentication, and I would say very deep analysis of behavior of the users, how they authenticate. So that you just understand what I'm talking about, or how do we enable it. So what does Duo gather? Duo gathers from the client specifics. Duo gathers specific information either from the mobile device or the application device or the PC, for instance, and it looks at various scenarios. Those various scenarios basically, or statistics check, is it patched? Is it jailbroken? Does it have the latest and greatest, I would say, operating system or browser, and so on. So these are specific attributes that we check before we allow the authentication to pass. If something doesn't work, it depends on the policy that we configure, or we prompt the user to basically upgrade or fix the issue before he is allowed to authenticate. So that is, I would say, an important part. What else is interesting? Yeah? So how do we also, I would say, at Cisco, look at the statistics or insights that we get from Duo? Yeah? The Duo security task monitor. So how do we basically look at the authentication types, or how often they happen, check the baseline, and get the statistics from it? So I'll give you an example. If I connect to a, I would say, application that needs authorization, I have the prompt from my phone, and at the same time I can click deny. So let's say that it's an unwanted or unknown authentication request. The second option that I get is this a trusted request. So if this is not a trusted request, Duo will mark it down as a untrusted or reported problematic request, which will be seen in the system. But this is not the only thing that we gather. This is not the only thing that we gather. We also look at specific things. We look at locations, we look at IPs, we look at who does it, we look at application access, we look at geolocation, we look at also reporting of the user itself. So these are all attributes that you can see in the insights and can report back. Additionally, Duo's analytical part tries to correct or create a baseline. So baseline basically how this user behaves. And so if he always uses push, and he always uses push from, I don't know, Slovenia, if sometimes gets an SMS authentication from Germany, it can be alerted, it can be reported, even though if it's successful. And so this is information that you can get or you can easily see. This is an example that we did with colleagues from Croatia, and maybe, I don't know if it's completely visible, but we've tested all the scenarios. So logging in from different locations, logging in from different IPs, from different mechanisms, how periodically we log in, how often we log in, or how often we deny it, so that we've seen basically what else can be reported and also marked as fraudulent. So this is immediately something that you get automatically into your system, and you can immediately effectively try to resolve the solution, the situation. This is also an important part. Now, what happens with applications that we want to, I would say, protect, but are legacy? We have, I would say, a huge amount of customers in Slovenia that have legacy applications. How does it come to be? Yeah, it's been an old application written in some COBOL, whatever, or something different. Then it's being used, it's never been updated, the company goes broke, the company has been acquired, the developers that actually created the application have moved along, and this application stays and nobody has any, I would say, specific idea how to modernize it, and it stays like that. And I'm sure you know examples like that everywhere around. And this is how it works as well. So if you want to, I would say, secure also something like that in your environment, you have to have, let's say, an intermediate step to authenticate this application. And so these applications probably will not have a modern way to communicate to your systems. But in this case, DNG, so Dual Network Gateway, allows a reverse proxy or a session to be set up, integrated together with your DUO environment or NFA environment, and allow access to those legacy applications through web, RDP, or SSH. So what does it allow you to do? Is basically have a centralized policy also for the applications that you would like to protect but have no native capability to protect. And that means that this can be either on-prem, somewhere else. Likelihood that if it's in the cloud, the likelihood is that that application already has modern interfaces for our application. This is very likely that it's going to be somewhere at your place, somewhere in your data center or at your customer's data center. Now, what about the visibility part? So we see this through the dashboard, but this has to be watched. If you've seen anything from, I would say, the whole risk environment, we talk about visibility. We talk about, let's say, response, and we talk about XDR a lot. XDR that we talk about, or that we had in Cisco is called, the backend part is called SecureX. SecureX is our free of charge cloud platform. This means that you are entitled to use it in any Cisco product, security product that is out there. So as long as you have a license, you are entitled to use SecureX. What is SecureX? SecureX basically allows for a unified visibility view of all our solutions that are many. And you see it in one dashboard. And in that dashboard, it's not just that you see the views or the statistics. At the same time, you can do threat investigation and workflows. And workflows that you also heard about is for specific security operation guys. Defining workflows is a nice, I would say, environment where collecting data, informing users, isolating users from your environment is something that can be automated. And this is what we are striving to do with SecureX. Big impact of SecureX is also integrability. So integrability. So all our products can be integrated by JIX. So also true. However, this doesn't stop there. So interfaces are really well defined, and at the same time, we also supply, I would say, plugins for third-party solutions. So it's not just that we are promoting Cisco, but we also input third-party solutions, and at the same time, this number of plugins is, I would say, growing all the time. And so, if you want to find out more information, thank you very much. If you want to find more information about it on the website, usually you get the latest information of what is supported, and it's growing all the time, so that you don't think about using it. And this is kind of just integrating Duo by itself. This is something that we see in the dashboard, and immediately you can see statistics, high-level statistics from what the users will get, what information from the users will get, and any interesting statistics or I would say information from the user segment itself. Does it comply? Basically, we try to match what did he see. At the same time, if a customer has CM implemented, this is easily integrated also into customer environment CMs. So it could be Curator, it could be Splunk, it could be what else. We do have defined interfaces also for those. If not, APIs are definitely available for also integration of those. What levels or where do we start? What do we need? Let's say our customers usually would then start at smaller customers with testing. We have a free license level for 10 people. go ahead, create a trial. It's not even a trial, it's just free use. Go to the site, register, implement MFA. I would say use it for VPN or for application authentication. Use it, it's good. It works well, it's easy to implement, it's a piece of cake in Nordics. Secondly, once you get into the environment of, let's say, implementing a more sophisticated MFA system, there are different levels that you can see here. Access and beyond allow, I would say, passwordless integration, use of SSO, and beyond level also uses or allows for DNG. Yeah? So the reverse proxy that I talked about before. Now, what is the important part, which I said you have to remember from this presentation, not about the levels of licensing. This is something that we're going to talk once we get to the sales part. Remember, any MFA is better than no MFA. Yeah? And secondly, levels of MFA have different quality. So also remember that. Yeah? Road to passwordless is, I would say, not an easy one, but I can recommend it, and I believe also the end users, not just IT users, the end users will find it beneficial and really implement a higher level of security and also avoid groups like collapses, breaking up at 1 AM in the morning. Okay? So, this is from our part. I hope it was informative. I would like to open it up for any questions. Let's see how much energy you have. No questions. Should I ask? Okay, again, what are the two things that I wanted to remember from this presentation? Any MFA is better than no MFA, and there are levels of MFA. Good, good. If there are no questions, I really like to thank you. So I'm happy that I've seen you after the second day in such a huge number. It shows, I would say, focus, and it shows patience, because it means that yesterday you didn't touch too much that you didn't. So I'm really happy. If anybody has, I would say, more private questions, I'll be here for a couple of more minutes after the presentation and we can talk about our outside. Thank you very much.